Right. I was saying this year's theme for the International Day of Education is Learning for Lasting Peace, which holds profound significance in our current global context. We are witnessing an unprecedented surge in violent conflicts accompanied by a distressing increase in discrimination, racism, xenophobia, and hate speech. The repercussions of this violence are vast, cutting across geographical, gender, racial, religious, and political lines, and manifesting both offline and online. In these challenging times, the importance of an active commitment to peace cannot be overstated, and it's more urgent now than ever before. Education is pivotal in this commitment, a fact that is emphatically highlighted by UNESCO's recommendation on education for peace, human rights, and sustainable development. And our approach, learning for peace, must be transformative. It's imperative that we equip learners with not only knowledge, but also the necessary values, attitudes, skills, and behaviors that enable them to be agents of peace in their communities. As educators, parents, and community leaders, we have a vital role to play in shaping an environment where peace, understanding, and mutual respect can thrive. So thank you so much again for joining us in this discussion today. Let us all work together. Excuse me, let us all work together to make learning for lasting peace a reality in our communities across the world. Now, just to reintroduce myself, as I mentioned at the start, my name is Louisa Olafuyi, and I'm the co-founder of Kunda Kids. Kunda Kids is a children's edtech media company. And our mission is to take African storytelling to a global audience. And I would say that I'm frequently asked about the biggest challenge that's facing us as a business. And I would put that down to the lack of urgency around the importance of children's content and the absence of diversity and inadequate promotion of environmental stewardship. It's not just a challenge for the industry that we're in, but it's a critical problem for humanity and one that has a direct impact on peace. Although what we're doing at Kunda Kids is exciting and in many ways unique, it really doesn't supersede the importance of why we're doing it and why we felt that it was necessary to have this conversation today. If we expect young people to lead fulfilling, responsible lives in harmony with their community and our planet, we cannot overlook the need to integrate inclusive content with strong environmental and messages and values in educational resources and also on media platforms. And the consequence of not doing this means that we're depriving the next generation of essential awareness and skills needed to address the pressing challenges of our time and the ability to thrive in an interconnected world. So just a reminder, as we talk about the next generation and what we're doing to inspire them, that these children that we're reaching today through all of our efforts will be our decision makers and thought leaders sooner than we think. And it's a problem that we're solving at Kunda Kids, but one that we all face. And that's why I'm extremely excited to introduce our panels that will be contributing to this vibrant conversation and necessary conversation. So first, I would love to introduce Dr. Joy Issa, who is based in Nigeria, I believe currently, Joy. Dr. Joy is an experienced educator, management consultant, youth counselor, and speaker who passionately supports young people through varied challenges. Dr. Issa now serves as president of ISED, the Issa School of Education, who've put this event together with us, a private college of education set up to upskill educational leaders in Africa. She also serves as vice chairperson of the board of Osnan Academy and as the chair of management board of the Pistis Leadership and Life Institute. Dr. Joy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Joining us, we also have Dr. Adam England. Dr. Adam England is an executive strategic consultant and specialist and head teacher of principal since 2004, excelling in both the UK and international spaces. Originally a language and sports teacher, he transitioned into educational leadership with a relentless commitment to holistic student development. Over the years, Dr. England has significantly contributed to international education. His expertise include rapidly enhancing learning capacities, evidenced by sector-leading value-added figures and the innovative use of adaptive technology. As an executive strategic consultant, he is driven to establish groundbreaking teaching and learning systems, transforming learning environments to raise standards globally. Dr. England, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Louisa.
And we also have Christine Ombima joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. Christine is an environmentalist and community development expert with over 5 years of expertise in child protection, safeguarding, and mental health advocacy. An alumnus of Teach for Kenya, where she held teaching leading positions whilst in the Teach for Kenya Fellowship. She championed inclusive education and mental wellness for young learners. She is currently an Edtech product support and associate at iHub. Thank you so much for joining us, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
And lastly, we have Christine Mwongera also joining us from Kenya. Christine is a high school teacher employed by Windle International Kenya. She has 7 years of experience working with refugees and teaching in an emergency setup. We are so inspired by your passion, Christine, around providing quality education to all children in your community, especially young girls who are most vulnerable because of harmful cultural practices. And the fact that you've worked so closely with local radio stations and media to desensitize people, so to sensitize people around education of girls and the danger of harmful cultural practices. Christine is also a focal person and very closely works with humanity and inclusion practices at Ekitabo, which we are so excited and always very excited to work with at Kunda Kids, and that in terms of making learning inclusive for special needs learners. We, just as a side note, Kunda Kids had our first translators for deaf children in our event in Nairobi, all thanks to Ekitabo. And Christine has also recently began anti-bullying clubs to help sensitize learners of the dangers of bullying and the importance of peace. That is our stellar lineup of panelists today, and I'm so thankful for all of your involvement in today's conversation. So just to jump right in, we have a video that I believe we're really excited to share to kick off the conversation. Is that something that we can play now?
Yes, it is.
Great.
In a world consumed with conflict, it can be difficult for educators to see where they fit in the grand picture of peace. The global narrative has tended towards looking at how the absence of peace disrupts education. But there is a growing body of work that investigates the effects of education on peace indicators. We are finding that education plays a significant role in the establishment of positive peace in countries, whether said country has experienced conflict or not. Now more than ever, it is essential that educators understand the gravity of their occupation. This goes beyond exam scores and end-of-year productions. Teachers are laying the mental foundations on which future generations will build peace in their countries. But what does that mean in the classroom? How do we translate peace building into our practice? Why should this matter to us at all? All this and more will be answered in our webinar, Education, the Cornerstone of Peace, on the 20th of January at 3 p.m. WAT time, promoting global peace through education in line with the UN's Development Agenda and UNESCO's Learning for Lasting Peace agenda.
Thank you very much. Great. So to start off the conversation, I would like to ask yourself, Dr. Isa, Joy, with your extensive education and management consulting background, How do you believe educational leaders can play a pivotal role in shaping curriculum that imparts academic knowledge and instills values, promoting lasting harmony and stability in communities?
That's such a great question. Thank you. And let me just say, it is such a pleasure and a privilege for me to be here having this conversation with all of us. So we find that over the years, Africans, we have this tradition of passing values and virtues from one generation to another orally. So we tell stories. We enjoy telling stories. We love to share, what grandma said, or why you shouldn't go out at night, or why you should go out first thing in the morning. We love to teach using our words, using song and things. And we find that formal education, as it were, was imported, was brought in, and not necessarily customized or, adjusted to accommodate the existing practice. There has been informal education in Africa, across East Africa, West Africa, everywhere. And so this handshake didn't really happen. And so all of a sudden, we have fewer African children appreciating folktales, appreciating stories that were used previously to teach values. Fewer people appreciate the proverbs, the idioms, in their local languages. And these are very useful tools that educators, school teachers, curriculum developers can use to ensure that the learning is appropriately contextualized and, it becomes really relevant. So there are lots of schools that are doing a good job, we have to be honest. There are lots of schools that are diversifying books, diversifying texts, videos and things to accommodate the multicultural context. However, there is a lot of room that, there's a lot of wiggle room in that space. There is a lot that school leaders, curriculum developers need to do to ensure that the right values are being taught, using the right stories, using the right context to make it relevant to the African child.
Absolutely. And I think that your point around making sure that cultural nuances are prioritized. There is no one size fits all. And I sometimes also believe, in line with what you said, that the Western focus on how to deliver education doesn't allow much room for the experiences of children growing up in various different parts in Africa and with various different cultural backgrounds. That can certainly be improved. And I think when children feel also heard and seen and understood, there's so much more openness that they have to learning. Dr. England, Adam, a quick question for you. In your opinion, how can we reshape our teaching approaches to align with the evolving concept, especially the concepts of peace moving forward, beyond traditional definitions and focusing on imparting values, attitudes, and skills that contribute to lasting harmony and stability in our communities? How do we even approach this topic of peace to children and learners?
As Joy said earlier, Louisa, it's an excellent question, and it's my firm value, and I'm not saying this, my firm belief, and I'm not saying this because I'm speaking to African colleagues, that one of the major threats to world peace, world economy, and I suppose world financial stability is the legacy of the British Empire. The British Empire gave us a lot, but it became the dominant political and military power, and part of that dominance was a particular way of teaching, and that way of teaching was essentially hierarchical. I speak, you listen, you write it down, you give it back to me, and I put a red tick on it, and I give it back to you. And that's a modus operandi that by and large hasn't changed for 150 years. And then I want to ask you this question. People ask, why is bullying so prevalent in school? Well, that paradigm I've just described to you as a way of teaching, it is bullying. I speak, you listen. And if you don't do what I tell you, get out, or I'll punish you. So essentially we've got a predominant way of teaching that has bullying at its core. So I think to move forward, we have to adopt a way of teaching that has harmony and integration and non-standardization at its core. And that involves two huge paradigm changes. First of all, teachers, and I think this affects particularly African teachers, especially male teachers, now have to accept that you've got to ditch your ego. You can't be sage on the stage anymore. Your time and your energy goes into differentiating and crafting the curriculum, which is exactly what Joy and yourself have described. Your curriculum, it will still have evidence in it of sort of European content, but it must by and large become a lot more Afrocentric, demonstrating virtues and values and exemplars through African narrative. I mean, it puzzled me when I started at CIS that, you know, we were studying in year 10 and year 11, you know, male and pale stories, you know, that had been European, and no surprise there, the boys looked out the window and incredibly bored. And you've got some of the world's greatest writers in Africa, and you've got Harp of a Yellow Sun, one of the world's best stories, Purple Hibiscus, Flight of Pelicans, and this stuff wasn't even on the curriculum. So a big step we took forward was, you know, if you differentiate the curriculum, which does take a lot of time, and imbue it with 3 or 4 ways of getting to the same outcome, then you as a teacher, you're much more of a facilitator. You can guide people through it, but they will more or less find their way. And one of the main values of working like this is that your clever children, they will get there anyway. If they can read, they will get there. So that allows your cleverer students to move at a faster pace, and it allows you as a teacher to spend much more time with the people who actually need you. So that's the first big paradigm shift. You know, your teachers are no longer a sage on the stage, you guide on the side, you're facilitating, and you're spending a preponderance of your time crafting these wonderful differentiated curricula. The second massive change to make is the physical provision. Corridors and classrooms should have been dead 100 years ago. They really should. You know, but you could bring Dickens to the 21st century and say, wow, amazing planes. I like this interweb thingy. Your computers aren't bad, but you know what? The classrooms, they still look just the same. And we've got to get away from that model. And I'll tell you what, if children are to become more self-directed and therefore more healthy in their behaviors, both physical and mental, they have to own how they learn. And the only way they can do that is in spaces which are flexible and what I would call polymorphic. And you can see a prototypical polymorphic space behind me. Lots of acoustic muffling, so a lot of people can work in there together. But children can more or less, within reason, choose where it is they work to get through a variety of tasks. It is incredibly impactful on mental well-being. It is incredibly impactful on standards because people become more engaged. And because it's impactful on standards, your value added improves. So those are the 2 huge changes to make. Pedagogy has to become what is technically called heutagogy, where you are guide on the side and the curriculum does most of the work for you, but you have to shape the curriculum. And secondly, you have to have a universal design paradigm in your learning areas, because people cannot have ownership and personalization and self-direction in those traditional Dickensian spaces. And you'll see no better space for it to be done than in CIS's new building in Africa. Big open-ended terraces making the most of natural light, and a great place for self-direction to occur within the scaffolding of what the teachers do it. But there is a huge piece of change management to make that successful. Otherwise, it will look like lazy teaching, and you have disillusioned teachers and children who don't achieve. And that's where I come in, because huge amounts of research, a lot of experience, helping people negotiate and navigate that rather difficult track from sage on the stage to guide on the side is what we do. But that, I am sure, is the way forward. I really am. That's how we get peace, because we're not bullying people anymore. We're tapping into their intrinsic motivation.
Wow, thank you. What a great response. And I think I've just taken in a lot of what you said. The first thing that came to my mind, Adam, was that saying that you know, children don't do what you tell them to do, they do what they see you do, right? There's so much that they follow your behavior. So naturally, when we think about things like bullying, and this kind of authoritarian dynamic that happens in schools, it's because that inferiority and superiority dynamic is something that they see a lot. So it's very unsurprising that we see them emulate sometimes those behaviors naturally.
Exactly, they're just repeating and regurgitating and recycling my role modeling, and then schools get puzzled about the prevalence of bullying. Well, that's what you do. So change it. Sorry, Louisa, I'm waxing lyrical. I'll shut up now.
No. I'm equally, passionate about that point. And I think that this view on not only how we teach, but the environment in which we teach is fundamental as well. And looking at learning spaces and the dynamic of learning spaces is something I believe that is not developed enough, which really leads me perfectly onto my next question. Just back to Joy quickly, which is you touched on what's happening at CIS and creating these effective learning spaces. Joy, could you just tell us a little bit more about that and how the thoughtfulness around physical learning spaces has contributed to how children learn about themselves and how they manage conflict, for instance, in school, and just improve the learning environment overall?
Okay, a simple example where we set up class meetings for students to have conversations at the end of a week, for example. The students have to sit in a circle and the teacher is part of that circle, almost like the knights in the round table. So we lose the hierarchical structure of the adult being the authority figure to the adult being the guide. And we're all here to sit in a circle and to talk about our differences or to plan an event. And this can happen in the early years, which is, defined as circle time. And so during circle time, which happens every day, by the way, circle time becomes the opportunity to share. So again, it's not just about the teacher sharing all the knowledge and all the important stuff. It's about Joy sitting in the corner, sharing, what's in the news. Joy, in show and tell, saying, oh, this is my favorite toy. This is what it is. This is what it likes. This is what it looks like in real life. This is a model of it. Providing the children the opportunities to have a voice. Spaces, being deliberate about planning quality engagement from students really helps promote student agency. So the students have a choice and they have a voice. They can actively contribute to what's going on in the class. This becomes practice or a microcosm of reality. So when I have had multiple years of opportunity from early years to primary, to secondary, to post-secondary, where I've had multiple opportunities to practice how to, okay, seems we have a hot mic.
How does it look, thing?
Could we have Eno please mute? Or admin, could you help us mute Eno? Thank you. Okay, awesome. Where we've had these opportunities to practice conflict resolution, negotiation skills in the safe spaces in the classrooms, then we can translate them to real life. Where I'm feeling a bit pressured and there's a space, there's a bean bag. There's a nice comfortable chair in another corner where I can go sit and relax, where my teachers understand that I need a few choices at certain times to help me engage better. Then, of course, the quality of my learning goes up. These things are not always very expensive, but they do, like Dr. England said, they do require planning and thinking and a shift in disposition from our part as the educators. We are the ones who need to shift our dispositions because we were taught in a certain way and we think, oh yeah, that's how you learn. Well, I humbly present alternatives to that traditional style of learning. We can teach today's children in a very different way to get them to thrive in today's world once we change our dispositions.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I'm really inspired by what you're doing at CIS, and I would love an opportunity to see it in practice. And I'll try to make sure that happens for myself because I would love to see how these environments sort of work and just be inspired by new ways of knowing how children can learn. Now, we've talked a lot about what happens in the classroom and in educational institutions. I wanted to sort of take the focus now into the community. Christine, Ombima, because we have two Christines. I would love to ask you, Christine, about specifically community engagement, and considering your experience in community development, how can educators, parents, and just everybody actively engage with their communities to support and reinforce the values of peace and inclusivity learnt in schools?
Thank you very much. So to begin with, I can say that the community plays a great role in raising learners and also embracing them, such that even the values that they embrace, some of them are learned from the community. So as a community development expert, when I was posted to my placement school in an underserved community for the 2 years that I was serving, it was really, really difficult at first to be able to see firsthand issues to do with poverty, issues to do with trauma, because this is a child. I joined the fellowship at a time when most of the learners had had their houses demolished because they had been built on public land. So this was a time when the children were really broken, since some of them used to live in makeshift tents and used to come to learn. Others had to go back up country. So it was really, really difficult to be able to tell the community that education is still very, very important. But to see the resilience of the learners being able to like rise above the ashes, to be able to rise above the trauma and be able to study, it was really, really encouraging. And this is what brought me to be able to, because I'm passionate about mental health advocacy, I realized that the parents and also the learners, most of them are coming from homes that are war-torn. They are coming from homes that have a lot of domestic violence, a lot of abuse. And this is what pushed me to be able, since I was supposed to implement a capstone project, it pushed me to be able to focus on art for mental wellness, since I realized some of these learners, they are not able to like express whatever it is that they're feeling. And you see, art is the kind of media and communication tool that even the deaf can be able to hear, and even the blind can be able to see, since it taps into the subconscious mind. And that's how I was able to set up at Vista, which is Art for Mental Wellness. Basically, it's all about training learners on emotional regulation, and we don't leave the parent behind, since through parental engagement, it enabled us as teachers, because you see, you can't just ask a learner, what is it that's going on at home? But through the kind of artwork that we were doing, we were able to also have a feelings jar, whereby the learners were able to like express whatever it is that they are feeling. And this brought the community aspect into it, whereby the parents were able to be involved so much in the education of the learner. And we can see that at times, even there are some things that the parents could not be able to see that they're happening and they're harming their child. And this was able to like also build a culture of emotional intelligence and also moral values among the learners. Because I realized that peace is not just the absence of war, but it also involves nurturing these learners holistically, such that they are able to like embrace love, patience, kindness, self-control. So it is really, really important. And through the community work that we're able to do, through community cleanups in the community, we were able to even rope in the community to be able to take part in activities that are able to enrich the learner and nurture them holistically.
Absolutely. And I love your point, Christine, around championing cultural intelligence, regulation for young people, sensory awareness, and just holistic wellness, because we can't expect children to learn when their basic needs have not been met, right? I think sometimes we see challenges in learning outcomes, but we also have to understand that at a starting point, children have their basic needs met in a way and able to feel comfortable, to feel confident, and to feel well regulated before they can even embark on a learning journey. So I love everything that you're doing there. I would also like to ask Christine Mwongera. Hi, Christine. More specifically, do you have some examples that you can share where there are instances where your efforts to bring specifically girls back into the classroom and issues around challenging stigmas around be it possibly pregnancy have played a role in fostering harmony and stability, how you've managed that relationship between their access to education, but also managing their family and community dynamics. I can imagine that that must be complex and some difficult to say the least. So I'd love some insight on your experiences and how that's been for you. Is Christine with us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Louisa. First off, I think I have a problem with my internet when I switch on the camera. So please, if you could allow me to speak off the camera.
Okay, no problem.
Okay?
We can hear you clearly, Christine.
Okay, thank you so much. So, having worked around, currently I'm working at the Kakuma refugee camp here in Kenya. So we have different ways of how to handle such issues. So for example, if we have a learner who is, or a girl who is expectant, how the teacher comes in to play this role is that, for example, myself, I've been heading the guidance and counseling department. We call these girls for a meeting and we talk to them. But the UNHCR allows these girls to continually, to continue with their studies until when they're due. So they're issued with a maternity leave. So the biggest problem we have is once they're issued with this maternity leave, they go deliver the baby and they're supposed to come back to school. So coming back to school is where now the teacher has to play a role. You have to use this person that is called a community mobilizer, who helps you to track down, the girl and their family. Then you go there as a teacher to try, and you're like a mediator between the community and the school. So you're asking this learner to come back to school. And we realized it was very challenging. I have done this several times. It puts my life in danger because we have different cultural practices. And you see, when this happens, for some of the cultures here, if we have a teenage mom, the parents' next decision will be, let us marry off this girl, because the moment they get another child, their value goes down, according to them, in quotes. The value of this child will no longer be able to pay or receive dowry, as much as expected if the girl didn't have a baby. So when we realized that was a problem, we started, sensitizing this through the radio. We introduced sessions in the afternoon where we could talk to the community members, and then they were allowed to give in a feedback through a channel where they're not paying any money, so that we can receive the questions. And as teachers, we're called there, and I found myself answering to some of these questions as to why we should encourage these girls to come back to the school. So one of the things we've strengthened a lot around the school is the guidance and counseling department, so that we ensure that these girls are able to stay in school and mentally they feel comfortable being around the school. We've also tried a lot to invest in inclusion so that they feel included in the school. They don't feel like they are not part of the learners once they become, moms, the teenage moms. And then we go for gender equality. We try as much as possible to ensure that we involve the girls in the school, and we have sessions with these girls through the life skill, educational lessons. We want these girls to continually be in school. So this is what actually led me to my observation. I made an observation around the school. I realized, yes, these girls, some of them are coming to school, but they are being bullied. So this is what led to creating the anti-bullying club. And it was so bad that the boys in the school, because I work in a setup where we have boys and girls in the school, we started realizing the boys, whenever we are calling, for example, for an assembly, they tell the teachers, call us for assemblies, but when you're calling this, don't call them girls. Tell them mothers come for the assembly. And we realized now the bullying had gone to, verbal, sometimes is relational type of bullying, and also we had carnal abuse, where now, Alana can verbally, insult a girl and tell them, you're a mother, you're not supposed to be in school. Education is not meant for you. Moms should stay at home. And I don't blame the boys. It's the chauvinistic kind of society where they come from and the type of tradition. Because here we are talking about over 6 different nationalities in a classroom. And most of them come from those chauvinistic kind of societies where girls are seen as it's the men and then the women come second, or it's the men and the elders and then women do not have a place. So when we realized this bullying was happening, that is what triggered me to now start an anti-bullying club in the school. And I started seeing the results. We had the anti-bullying club, and also we started a peace club with the help of World Vision Kenya. So we started realizing the more we sensitize the boys on this, sometimes when you want some of these cultures to die, especially the negative ones, do not leave the boys out of it. When you talk to the girls without talking to the boys, somehow it's you've done half the work. So we started calling the boys for more meetings, and we started realizing it was helping to create a positive environment in the school. And also we had this harmonized kind of school culture that if, for example, you're talking badly towards a girl, you'll find another boy telling you, stop it, that is wrong. We've already had it in the club, and we've had the teacher saying in class that we are all equal so long as we are wearing a school uniform, so you do not have any rights to do this. And then it's the anti-bullying club also helps to minimize the bullying itself. And then finally, it's created it strengthens the interpersonal relationship among the learners. And we started, seeing that now learners can appreciate each other's culture. They are able to accommodate the girls in the school. And, they wanted to join these clubs because we were introducing T-shirts with words written on them that everyone has a right to be in school, whether you're a boy or a girl. We started making signs within the school to, to sensitize on this bullying and to create inclusivity in the school, whether you're a girl, whether you are a special need learner, whether you're a boy, it doesn't matter where you come from, the traditions you have or your cultures. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you for the incredible, important work that you're doing. Honestly, I understand, as I imagined, that the issues around it are deep-rooted and very complex, but it looks like your approach to it is really been effective and is incredibly important. So thank you. I mean, I'd love to now move on to getting some questions from our attendees. And before I do that, I sort of had one question I would love to pose to all of our panelists. And it's this sort of notion of peace as a topic and as a subject, and how we integrate it into early curriculum, because it's something that can feel, at least from my experience, quite broad, especially to early learners. So how do we introduce the topic so that children can understand what it is, understand the gravity of it, and also feel empowered that they can make a positive and a lasting contribution. I'm posing it to all of you, so whoever would like to answer, please do.
It's a pretty far-ranging question to ask, Louisa, isn't it? You know, the thematization of peace within the early years. But you know, I've seen Mrs. Issa and Dr. Issa rather, and some of her colleagues, you know, propagate that philosophy rather well. And I think if you don't learn the art of negotiation and overlapping your thoughts with others and empathy when you're young, it's much, much harder to learn them when you're older. So that collegiality amongst early years, the sense that negotiation, that men and women are equal, and I would say, having spent a lifetime around women, in many ways, women are much stronger. I would never, ever have a senior leadership team without 3 or 4 very, very strong female voices, because my female colleagues have always seen things that I have not seen, you know, unforeseen consequences, bigger picture thinking. But that kind of inclusion, diversity and equity, I think it starts in those early years classroom. And I think it does come down to the art of negotiation and what Dr. Issa referred to earlier on circle time. Very interestingly, the Knights of the Round Table were called the Knights of the Round Table. They weren't called the Knights of the Square Table, were they? And that's quite important, because you'll see some of the imagery behind me. The rectilinear world is all about power and control. The curved universe is all about shared experiences. And I think building those shared experiences, the scope for those carefully curated conversations into the provision for early years is where this begins. I bet you Vladimir Putin never had circle time. I'll tell you that now. You know, so I think the art of peace starts in early years with spaces, with behaviors, and I think above all else, with creating those very carefully curated conversations with little ones.
Thank you, Dr. England. Does anybody have anything else to share on sort of touching on that topic, whether in the classroom or in communities?
I apologize, I was logged out. I wonder if you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So what I had in mind when Christina was sharing was about this idea of systemic bullying, if you will, based on cultural hierarchies, and how fantastic or outstanding for us as educators to infuse collaboration, infuse the virtues she described of, you know, patience and gentleness and kindness into the school, into the curriculum. Can we have, you know, kindness days? Can we have these learning opportunities where people, what we have not learned outside of the classroom, what we may not have learned in our homes, can be learned in schools. And thereby we're deliberately promoting more peaceful communities. And one of the things that I will share from CIS, by the way, I used to work at CIS, I don't work there anymore, or we don't work there anymore. But one of the things that was important to a tradition, you know, instead of celebrating Valentine's Day, we would have chocolate friendship days and promote friendship as a virtue, friendship as something to celebrate, where you have friends from across the world, boys, girls, people with disabilities, you know, so we go across these religious, racial, ethnic, gender divides that exist in the larger society. And when we promote them in our classrooms, in our schools, then we can have more peaceful communities. You know, so that's what I really wanted to add, that it's important for this idea of cohesion and collaboration to permeate the entire school. So it's not just about maybe specific texts, but also about events that happen across schools.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Issa. And Christine, I can see you have your hand up. Please go ahead. Christine?
Yeah, thank you. So myself, I was actually thinking I wish there would be a way that the schools would incorporate like classrooms where learners can go do meditation, because I feel we need, especially the context of the learners that I have, so many of them are coming from environments where there is a lot of traumas. And I don't know, but I was just thinking, I wish we could embrace, this safe space of classrooms where learners are able to go and do a meditation session. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if I could add something to what Christine just said there, I think the art of that meditation and that form of regulation is that children need to do it close to their peers. And the feedback we get from especially our girls, and a group of girls in New York did this as a pilot for me. And what it boiled down to was this: everybody dysregulates, everybody gets stressed and anxious. And when people do, they do not want to go into a room miles away from their peers and their friends to re-regulate. Their feedback to us was, let's re-regulate safely, let's deal with our anxieties and stresses, but it's not some dirty little secret in a dark room. It's done here, close by, with our communities and with our peers. And if you look behind me, that's a sort of meditation self-regulation booth that I've developed for classrooms. It's highly insulated in terms of sound, very soft. It's like stepping into a different dimension. So if you're having a moment, you don't need to go off and go home. Say, sir, miss, can I just pop in the back there, a couple of minutes, right, calm. And then within a few minutes, you've self-regulated. And it is a really effective way to help people understand and reflect on their emotions and manage them constructively. And one of my sayings is from building schools like this now, is one space is also many spaces, and it's all about zoning those spaces to get all those different functions in them. So Christina, you're spot on. That meditation is great, and let's just make spaces for them.
Thank you so much. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And we actually asked some of those that registered to attend this webinar to drop in some questions if they wanted to ahead of time. And we've got a great practical question that came through. Again, this is for everybody. So the question is, what are some resources available for teaching the subject of peace and conflict resolutions to kids, specifically under the age of 10? Does anyone have any resources or points of insight that they can recommend and point some of our audience members to?
Joy, I think Mrs. Akinpelu had a huge bundle, didn't she, at CIS? She was brilliant with that.
Yes, absolutely. So it's, again, I'd like us to really rethink this idea of importing resources or bringing in stuff. I think we need to think about what we already have. What do you have in place, excuse me, for the learning spaces? Like I said, excuse me. Yeah, what do you have in place for managing, how, okay, too many schools have the naughty corner, which I think should become the centering corner. The space where you go to recenter your thoughts, the space where you go to redirect the misbehavior. That's a very simple change that can be made to move away from anger and violent escalations to, I need to be calm. I am overstimulated. I'm very upset. I'm emotionally disoriented. I need to go into that space to sit and count to 10. I need to go and say, okay, this is what is happening to me right now. I need to calm down. I need to change my thoughts. That doesn't require any purchases. You already have a corner. Redirect the energy and move away from this negative disposition of punishment to the positive discipline where we're correcting the misbehavior and redirecting the energy.
Can I corroborate that with a really funny story?
Example
Joe?
would be, like we
sorry,
said,
go on.
the existing circle times, the class meetings, have an agenda. And in your weekly class meeting, for example, you should always have, you could always include, a story, an idiom, a proverb for conversations to unpack. So we're unpacking the story, talking about kindness. And we are looking for, the next week, we'll be looking for multiple opportunities where we're kind to each other. And we celebrate kindness at the end of the week. Oh, who demonstrated whatever act of kindness it was, who did this. So we need to move away from this idea that, oh, someone has created something and we need to buy it.
Yeah.
No, we have resources available to us in our rooms. We can rethink our approaches to teaching and learning, and that I would recommend as the first step.
Joy, can I just corroborate that with quite a funny story? One second, right? I read hugely about neuroscience. I love neuroscience, and we know loads about it. If your medulla here in the middle of your brain is activated, that's fight or flight. They say, I want to run away, I'm overregulated, I'm going to go. It's activated by noise sources behind you, right? So the number of times when I was a teacher, I said perhaps to a naughty boy, come and sit here at the front of the class, and I had done exactly the wrong thing, because now all the noise is behind him, his medulla is lighting up, his fight or flight's going crazy, and of course he can't self-regulate. So just doing a little bit of reading about neuroscience and understanding how neurotypical and neurodivergent neurology behaves according to what you're doing as the teacher, that's the biggest resource you can ever have.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. I was just muted there for a second. Christine, I can see you've got your arm up, your hand up.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I wanted to say that in order to build peaceful classrooms, we should shift our focus from the punishment to consequences and also to rewards. Instead of punishing bad behavior all the time, we should also be able to reward good behavior. Because you see, most of the rules are normally like, do not do this. For example, do not litter the classroom. Rather, the rules should be made together with the learners such that keep the classroom clean, such that they know that when I keep the classroom clean, maybe there are gifts that I'll be given, and this will be able to motivate others to be able to like be better children. And you see, coming up with the rules together with the learners is really, really important in ensuring that the classroom is peaceful. And also if there is a conflict in the classroom, ensuring that the learners, each and every learner has a voice and that the classroom is a safe space. It will enable each and every learner to feel that their emotions are valid, in as much as maybe they wronged the other person, they'll be able to apologize, and it will be able to like lead other learners to be able to embrace that learner rather than bullying them and looking down upon them. It will be able to like promote cohesiveness and peace in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. And I absolutely love that point. And it links very much to a question that I can see in the comments, which is, we've talked about how that works effectively in the classroom, but I think that these would work just as effectively at home. So we have a question from Nkechi, which is, how can we teach our toddlers at home about inclusion and the notion of peace?
If I may jump on this one quickly, I think it starts with us being centered and being peaceful. Because if I'm all, stimulated and I'm all, emotionally excited, I'm quick-tempered or short-tempered, and my toddler spills their cereal, considering the fact that cereal is very expensive right now, that will get, my back up. And before you know it, I'm raising my voice, I'm agitated, as opposed to supporting that toddler learn how to manage their hands, the bowl, and take care of what they should be taking care of. We are very reactive sometimes as parents. You know, you scream at a child, you jump into the, being centered, being peaceful, being mindful of the fact that my actions are communicating values, a message, kind of helps. So when my children are both adults right now, when they were younger, I remember I would sometimes sit on my hands, you know, so I don't grab a child and just say, come back here. You know, I would just, you know, sit in my hands and remind myself, speak calmly, breathe. I remind myself to calm down first before I respond, you know, to the toddler. And that becomes the example.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And another question that we have from Nancy in the comments is, how can educational institutions effectively engage and orientate parents and communities to ensure they actively support and do not negate the efforts aimed at using education as a means for fostering peace? Again, open to anybody on the floor.
Yes, I can take that.
Great, thank you.
I can say, yes, from the 2 years of placement in the underserved community of Mwongera, which is the slum in Nairobi, it is a place that is dotted with issues to do with violence, whereby you can be mugged. But what I realized from the 2 years that I was there, the community is one great asset. And for you to be able to like introduce something to the community and they embrace, you have to be their friends. Because you see, these parents, they are the same ones who are selling vegetables in the community. They're the same ones who are having businesses. So supporting them, showing that you show them support. If it's businesses, buying from them, even having a chat with them about how the impact of Teach for Kenya in the community is. I saw it was very, very important, such that when we even had projects, they even came and invested in the projects by giving their time, their energy, their resources. So I can say that for peace to be able to thrive in the schools and also in the community, since we cannot learn without the community being part of it, it's really, really important for us not to like negate whatever it is that's going on in the community. These are people who can be able to give their views on whatever it is that's working and what's not working, since these are their children and they're the people that is spending a lot of our time. So I guess it's very, very important for the community to be able to like own whatever it is development project that you've been able to bring. It's really, really important that the community is also given a voice, that you encourage them, that the school is a safe space, that the children can be able to like learn, they can be able to, the teacher is a trusted person, and also ensure that the community is able to like participate even in other activities that we engage in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine. And with that, we have come to the end of this fantastic session. And I must thank you so much for taking time to join us today. It's been such a valuable conversation, and I've learned an incredible amount. Excuse the background noise. So I just wanted to say, first and foremost, a big thank you to our panelists, Dr. Joy Issa, and thank you, and you know, the Issa School of Education for partnering with us to put this together. We are so honored to have you in our space. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Adam England. Thank you for your insights. They've been invaluable. Christine Ombima, thank you again for joining us. It's been wonderful to learn about everything that you're doing. Sorry about that. And then also Christine Mwongera, thank you again for so much. And we were really inspired with the work that you're doing in communities and with young girls. Thank you so much for everybody joining us.